everyone, who all is here? We've got Nick in the chat. We've got Andrew in the chat. What do we want to do today with our time? What is the plan, everybody in the chat? Is it get a haircut? Maybe get a haircut? I don't know. Checking out those points right there. We got to throw out some points for the people here. Great job, Andrew. What should we do? There we go. That's a better volume right there. So weird. All the volumes. Try to get them right. Oh, my headphones twisted. Fix the headphones. What do people want to do? Stats 101, 320. Let's see what people want to do. I'm trying to keep my volume down in my ears lower these days. Let's see. I got R loaded up. Some people have asked about some R. Close out of all this. Don't save a million things. There we go. Looks good. Hey, what's up, Matt? Good to see you here. What do people want to do? We've got 201, 310. Let me see what's coming up here in 201 and everything. What is coming up in the classes? Remind me later. Find out. Bad gateway. This is a bad gateway for my person. If you have questions, let us know. What do people want to work on? Okay, let's go look at a 201 class. 201 class. I'm going to talk to the graders and make sure they're on track. We've got Canvas content number 1. We could do that again here. We got data analytics 2, and then Friday we got chapter 3. Wow, we got a lot of time for chapter 3. And then next week starts hitting with some chapter 4, and is it 5 next week also? Chapter 3 is the end of this week. Chapter 4 and 5 are next week. That's really gonna be tough for people. Chapter 4 and 5, or 5 is where it gets difficult. So we could do some Canvas content number 1 probably to start. Probably pretty good right here. So let's do Canvas content number 1. How's that sound to people? And I'm gonna mention a few things in class right here, but let's do Canvas content number 1. Okay, Canvas content number 1. One, two people say I see a few more. I have a quick question regarding the assignment for Wednesday. I select tailed end subset, put my number in, but it doesn't change the row numbers in the bottom. It should, and then you should click OK right there. You should click OK. Is this the data analytics 2, Matt? Data analytics 3 and then chapter 3 quiz? Yeah, well, Nick, we can do that first. You're here, so we can do that. Let's put the notes down. So we have data analytics 2. And then we have, I think chapter 3 was first. What chapter 3 questions do you want to do here? We'll start of how to do data analytics 2. Getting started with data analytics 2. And I think we covered the full thing in another video. We could talk over some other parts of it, but how to get started with that. Let me go ahead and bring that up right here. Data analytics 2. I click OK and it just gives me that one row. Oh, you might have something clicked differently. You know what I might do? Watch this. I got ideas. Watch this. What was that? Bed Bath & Beyond sending me stuff. Let's head over to the main screen. You just figured it out. Awesome. You might have been clicking select just that row. Okay, so we're over here. We lost our notepad, restarted the program. Well, that's weird. Let's call this updating data analytics 2. Stat 201, updating data analytics 2. So maybe you're not in our section. This might be a little small section right here. We're going to look for that video. Oh, I put it in there. Okay. So if you check this out right here, video assignment help, I already did this. There we go. I try to put the sections in the video where I did it. So there's me of the past showing, and it's in this section right here. We cover it all. So basically I was like, hey, we covered it. So let me just put it in the video right here. So it's right there. Ella, good to see you there. So if you want, this video is sectioned out for you with what we do at each part. And so check it out. Probably people checking this video out, hopefully. Give it a like. Woo! Any questions right here? I have this stream video. Yeah. So I was like, I thought I put that in here. And then make sure when you take your random sample, where do we take our random sample? It looks like we take it. Oh, I'm talking about bars and pies. Bars and pies, random sample right here. This is how to take the random sample. And you can just click through. We talked through the theory of it, the random sample. And here's how to take a random sample. Tables, subset. When you go to table subset, you will have the ability now. We'll turn off past Brian's talking right here. You will have the ability to go in there. And, oh, you might have had selected rows right there. Okay. Oh. If you notice, you got to be really quick. So this is probably where I've made people make a mistake. Is if you click OK and you've typed 499 in there, look really quickly what happens. This is what's happening with people. Do you see what happens right here? When you click OK, watch right there, it goes down to that. So I should have maybe said select that, but if you type 499 and click OK, it will change it. So once you click OK, it does select that button. Nothing wrong with why did it change to 403 really quickly? That's so weird. It did do 499, but that's even weirder that there's like one frame of 403. So you might want to click that button. You might have typed in 499 selected row or something. But I know if you type the number in, then just click OK, it'll do it. It'll register as that's where you want to do it. It's one of the ways I've always done it. Just type the number in, click OK. I guess if I can take out a click or something, I always do that. What other questions are there? What other questions are there right now? Chapter 3, I think someone said, which ones on Chapter 3 should we do? So if you have an issue, let me know. Really good thing right there. Thank you, Matt. What other questions are there? It was Nick who said Chapter 3. Should we do Chapter 3 homework? We haven't done the homework yet for it. So it might be best to do the homework first, and then we could do the quiz. But remember, if you say the question, we'll do the question. Very few people have done the Chapter 3 homework so far. And so let's go do the Chapter 3 homework. Okay, Chapter 3 homework. Oh. And then if you have a question on one of the quiz questions, let me know. Our chill music right here. Constant chill music. Assignment manager. But drop those questions in the chat. Okay. Here we are with some Chapter 3 homework. Recap on Chapter 3? Yeah, with this, do you want to do the homework or recap? What would you like, Nick? Stat 201, Chapter 3, homework, and review. Well, we can review, like, while doing this right here. Like, we could talk over the concepts of it. So, quick recap. So, Chapter 3 is all about kind of the bivariate categorical right here. So, if you notice right here, we had to ask people 2 categorical questions. Does that make sense? Like, how do you rate these universities, I think, college professors at universities or college presidents? And they asked U.S. adults or they asked the college presidents. This one's a little tricky because it starts grouping the data together. But you see here, you have a categorical question and a categorical question. Pretty sure every question is basically bivariate categorical data. So you're really looking at the idea of bivariate. We could go look at the data for this. But this is bivariate. And what is this graphic called? Actually, this one is called, it's not my favorite graphic. It's not quite a mosaic plot, but you should know what that graphic is called. So what is that graphic called right there? And every question we are doing is in the bottom right quadrant because everything is bivariate categorical. So with everything being bivariate categorical, then we need to take a look here. What is that graphic called on the screen? What is that graphic called? Stacked bar charts. Nice job right there, Nick. It's stacked bar charts. So we have stacked bar charts on the screen. Not as good as mosaic plots. I prefer those. It's a stacked bar chart. What we got here, that's a mosaic plot. So this is a mosaic plot. You can tell a lot less people who said yes to fish consumption versus prostate cancer were sampled. So that's the do you have prostate cancer? Yes. Fish consumption going from small, never, moderate, large. Never should have been here because that's a little bit ordinal. So that's an ordinal categorical variable where they could have put it from lowest to highest. So never should have been all the way up there at the top, you ask me. That's a mosaic plot. What do we got here? Another mosaic plot with a much stronger association. So now they're showing you a mosaic plot where there's large gaps between the conditional distributions. Where are the conditional distributions on a mosaic plot? Where are the conditional distributions on a mosaic plot? This is the quick recap. We're not even answering any questions. We're just trying to understand kind of where are the conditional distributions. We had to say given someone is an adult. So if we say given someone is an adult, then the conditional distribution would be where? Can you see it? Like if I asked you circle the conditional distribution, would you be able to circle it? We'd want to circle this. That, and there's another conditional right here, given someone's a president of a college. So you can see the distribution of what adults think and the distribution of what presidents think. So that is conditional distributions where we have a marginal distribution. This one only shows one. A lot of good mosaic plots also have one on the right side too, showing the other variables marginal distribution. So they really need to update their mosaic plots. So that is the conditional versus the marginal of a mosaic. And it also goes along with a contingency table. Now, they didn't put the margins over here. The margins would just be the sum of poor, the sum of US adult. I wish they would. It would make the question a lot easier if they gave the marginal distributions over there. And what do they have? Another mosaic plot? Ooh, so this definitely shows what's going on right here. Okay. Ooh. So they're doing a 3-variable mosaic plot because they're breaking it apart into liberal, moderate, conservatives. So they've done another variable right here, and they're showing that the males usually have higher than females. You've got moderate right here, but they've just added kind of, I wish they just said liberal female, liberal male, moderate female, moderate male, conservative female, conservative male. And that would be a much better way, in my opinion, but I guess it would take up too much space on the axis. But you're just doing kind of, it can still be considered 2 variables because you're like, what is someone's combination of blank and blank? That's one thing you could collect on. So their combination of political view and gender is one variable. Like I am male something. Not gonna say my political view. But you could just put Brian in one of these 3 groups. And thus you've collected one variable on Brian, even though it's kind of 2, but it's being used to say which one of these 6 groups are you in, and then what one of these 3 groups is your diet in. So pretty interesting way to collect their data. And that's what's interesting about data is there's so many ways to collect it. These are the conditional distributions, and it looks like there were a lot of liberal males, a lot of moderate males, and usually there's less females to males. Also, there's very few female conservatives. We can tell by the width of the marginal distribution at the bottom. We'll see what they ask with these questions. Does that make sense, Nick? As a recap, we're talking conditional, we're talking marginal, we're talking mosaic plots, we're talking contingency tables, we're talking the cells and the individual values, stacked bar charts. You could do side-by-side pie charts. But how do we graph and communicate this knowledge? Awesome. So let's call that the recap. So chapter 3 review. And we just kind of looked through and made sure we can understand what these questions are going to lead us down. So this is Stat Tool 1, Chapter 3 homework. So we need to know what they're going to lead us down with each question. And here's the first question. What is that thing called right there? What is that thing called? We have to know the names of the graphics we're working with. What is that thing called? You have to know what you're working with. So it's not about getting these answers, it's about knowing what you have. A contingency table is a blank display of blank data. A contingency table is it's down here in the bottom right. If you notice, it connects here on categorical. So a contingency table is a bivariate display of 2 categorical variables. Great job, Ella, right there. It's a contingency table is a bivariate display of 2 categorical variables. So what does that mean? It means we asked 2 questions. We asked people, are you a U.S. president? Are you a president of a college? Or are you a U.S. adult? Which one of those 2 groups do you fall into? And the answers are going to be, if you look across here, you can tell how many U.S. adults there are versus how many presidents. Let's go ahead and take this right here. I'm going to snipping tool it. It wants to know what % of college presidents. So does that sound conditional or marginal? What % of college presidents? So it says what % of college presidents. Does that sound conditional or marginal? What % of college presidents think that there's a poor education from colleges? Why would they say that? What % of college? So does that sound conditional or marginal? Now, conditional means you're setting a condition and looking within one of the variables at the other variable. So let's write that right here. Conditional taking one variable and setting a level to it. Then look at the distribution of the other. Marginal. Distribution in the margins and only considers one variable. So is this conditional or marginal when we say of the of the presidents of colleges, what percent think it's poor? Does that sound conditional or marginal? So we have to know how to do this. Of the college presidents, or what percent of college presidents think that there is a poor education? Is that conditional or marginal? So we have to know the terms that conditional is going to take one variable and set a level to it. When we say set a level, so a variable would be something like, it is conditional. Great job, Nick, right there. Yeah. So we're taking this variable. That's when you take a variable and you set a level to it. And then you look at the distribution of another one. So we can look at everything right here, or we could just focus in on this because we're focusing in on, see how it uses both variables? It's like, okay, so if we only look at college presidents, what percent think there's a poor education? So we're going to actually have to find out the totals over here on the other side. So this is going to help us later on with other parts of this question probably. Boop. Here, we'll move it. Go this, watch this. And good. How would marginal differ? So marginal is actually going to be over here. So the marginal distribution is literally the distribution in the margin. So we are actually having to find the marginal 1062. So that is the amount of presidents that were sampled. And then right here, so where are the marginal distributions again? Where are the marginal? I guess that's right, 2163. The marginal distributions are the distributions in the margins. Like this is, if you look at where the margins are at on this graphic, the margins are here. And there would be another margin down here. So we could fill out the rest of this table and draw the marginal. It's literally the distribution in the margin. And there's the marginal distribution of quality and type. If you want to call it like type or something, like what are you? So you've got two marginal distributions. They just look at one variable. Like, yeah, just the totals. And then you could do the percentages, like what percent of people thought there was a poor quality. That's just a marginal question. Does that make sense? If you say what percent of people thought there was a poor quality, that is merely a marginal question. So that is just 353. And we're doing blue. And try taking notes like this, because then it's easier to remember. 903 plus 222. And and then that's 290, right? So there's the marginal distributions of quality. And on the right, we have the marginal distribution of type. And then if you look within a variable, we can do a conditional. So how are we going to find out the percent of college presidents who think there's a poor quality? How are we going to find that out with this information right here? How would we find out the percent of presidents who believe there's a poor quality? So of the presidents, what percent think there's a poor quality? How are we going to find that out? How are we going to find out what percent of presidents think there's a poor quality? Which is a conditional question. What percent of the presidents think there's a poor quality? How are we going to figure that out? And yeah, you're right. You got it, Nick. Can you put the numbers in the chat? And great job, Nick, right there. How are we going to figure it out? Take a shot at the numbers right here. How are we going to figure that out? What would the mathematics be? So you can always solve it out in the chat, get some points for that. But how would we figure that out? I'll do the next few here. I'll just kind of ask some general questions. But how would we figure out what percent of what percent of college presidents think that there's a poor quality? So of the college presidents, what percent think there's a poor quality? What numbers are we going to divide? All 350 points are here following along. What would it be? Sometimes with all these numbers, people can get a little bit confused on what numbers to use. Remember, we're thinking only of the college presidents. You got it. Great job. Another 50 points right there. That is right. Helps me to also see it on the screen for later, because now I can just look over there at the screen and do 280, 28 divided by... That should be it right there. We're going to times it by 100 because it is a percentage, and round to 1 decimal. Delete those because that's rounding it. And there we go. What percent of U.S. adults think the value provided is either good or excellent? What is the comparable percentage of college presidents? Okay, so first they want the U.S. adults, and they want good or excellent. They want good or excellent. So we're just going to take this circle that we drew right here, eventually. There we go. And good or excellent is going to be of interest to us. And then we're asking of the U.S. adults. So just important to think about how these questions are being asked. Like, of the U.S. adults, what percent think it's good or excellent? So now we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to take 757 plus 109 divided by 2163 and times by 100. It's basically 40. It's just 40% on the dot. And so that should be 40% as long as we do our math right. There we go. For the college presidents, we're just going to do the same thing. So all we have to do is move this back down here. And then we just say this is what we're interested in here. And we're just using that total over there because we're saying of the college presidents, what percent thought it was this or this. So we have to find out the 631 plus the 181 divided by 0. And so they're going to be more likely 76.5, it looks like. And there it is, 76.5, which you could do, maybe the calculator could just do round to 1 decimal, 76.5. And that's a big difference, which shows you that there's some sort of, would you say somebody's opinion, I think this is where they're going with this, do you think someone's opinion on the quality of college would depend if they're the president of a college or just an adult? Because adults give college a good or excellent rating 40% of the time, whereas the college presidents give it a good or excellent rating 76.5. So on average, college presidents have a better opinion, saying there's some sort of dependency here. So is it reasonable to include that 5.04% of U.S. adults think that higher education is surprising excellent value? Why or why not? Oof. Okay. Let's go look at the numbers. I'm assuming their number is accurate because they're just asking about this 109 number. So they're only asking about the 109 right here. They're just saying, is this reasonable to conclude? That's just an estimate from a sample. We wouldn't know that it's the truth. Okay, so they're just using this number right here to say, is this reasonable? And yeah, there's the rounding. So the sample is representative of the U.S. population. Therefore, exactly, no, we don't know exactly. It's just an estimate. The percent is significantly different from the percent in the sample. No, it's very close to. The sample is likely representative, so the true value may be close to, but not exactly because it's only an estimate. Sounds a lot like what I was saying. The sample is probably not representative. We have no evidence of that. So as long as the sample is representative, it could create a good estimate. Really good question right there. How you doing, Nick? That was a really good first question. So we'll put here question 1. Really like that one. That was good job kind of doing conditional marginal and also understanding just how we can show if there's a relationship between variables. So very important right there. Chapter 3 homework. Question 2. Okay, just trying to, yes. And let me know if you have questions or you get stuck on it. I think this one throws a trick at you right here. Sort of the same question right here. So if you notice what they've done right here, oh, they're just having you do the full conditional distribution. So a conditional distribution, once again, looks within a variable. And they're doing just U.S. adults. So now we have to go right here. Or, yeah, no, just presidents. Oh, there we go, just presidents. Boop. And now we would get the totals over here. And the total of presidents is going to be... See, what I like is if I were to go here and I'm trying to think of the quickest way to do it. Well, it'd be a little longer inside of R, but I could do it. Take all the numbers. Oh, yeah, that's how. So what are the numbers here again? I'm going to cheat really quick, and then we'll do it. Because the total is that. So that would just go there and divide all of them. But I like doing this inside. Let me go here. Vector. And take the vector store into. And concatenate the vector 34, 215, 618, 179, 0. And vector divide by sum of vector. And then we could take all this right here and go to round or round the thing we found. Let's just call this x really quick. X round of x times 100 to 2 decimals. And there's the answers. So there's our answers right down there. That's why I like code. Okay, so let's do it the real way. Let's add up the numbers. And 1, 0, 4, 6. And now everything gets divided by it. Does that make sense right here, Nick, on how to do this? Every number is going to get divided by this to give it the percent. And this is the percent of presidents who think that college is this worth of rating. Got the 0 right there. But once again, I do like coding because if you do it with code, you can do it by hand. That's how I do it by hand. But we should be able to get the right answer here with code. And let me get it right on the screen right there. There's my answers right there. And so now I can just type in, really? Zoom out just a little. There we go. Oh, it's 1 decimal. There we go. And now we can do 3.3, 20.6, 17.1. Ooh, we're missing something. Oh, we forgot the 59.1. User error right there. 17.1. And I'll show again how one of these is calculated, and then 0. This is of the U.S. presidents, or my gosh, we'll just call them U.S. presidents. Why not? So, and then they're going to go a little bit crazy right here with kind of combining groups together. So we'll talk about how to combine this in a second, but I do want to make sure if anyone's following along, all we did was take these numbers and divide by the total. This is a marginal display. Once again, as we talked about in the previous question, marginal looks within, like we are currently looking at the marginal distribution of U.S. adults by going within a variable right here and saying what percent of U.S. adults think that there's an excellent quality. So you're taking 109 divided by 2163. You always want to think, am I doing marginal or conditional? So the same thing's going on right here. We're saying what percent of presidents, and there was 1046 of them. We added up the total to get 1046 right there. So what percent thought there was a poor quality? 34 divided by 1046 times by 100 and round to 1 decimal, as you can see right there. That's 3.3. So just make sure to follow through and understand what a marginal distribution is. That's kind of the key learning objective. Now they're doing a little bit different right here, and they're only looking at poor, middle, which is going to be only fair, and good or excellent. So this one is really weird and catches a lot of people off guard because it looks the following way. They are doing the data this way. They're asking this group, this group, this group, and there you go. They don't mention that. Did not know, did not answer NA. So this is how our data is going to look right here. They literally just remove those did not know, no answers. So you don't use those in the total. And that usually is what catches people off guard about this question. But someone's watching it and like, aha, don't worry. I've gotten a lot of emails. I've gotten a lot of emails saying, this just doesn't work. And please let us know if something's not working. Because there's sometimes a little trick or something that's missed, which can catch you off guard. That's the total. Don't use that value right there. That's not used for the totals in this table. Once again, I can cheat over here by going back to my program and just change my vector since I've already wrote this right here just to check my work. 900, and then this right here is going to be 855. And there we go, rounded to 2 decimals are the answers right down there. So yeah, well, a trick is just sometimes people wish to regroup the data. I wish they said, that's why I'm here to kind of give hints for this, is I wish they said, like, don't use the don't know, don't answers. That's usually, they could have been more specific. They don't mention it. So you'd have to assume. And once again, any of these numbers are just being found by dividing by 2071. So you could just take 316 and divide by 2071. One of the ones that might catch people off guard is this number in here, which is the combination of those two groups, would be 755 plus 100 divided by 2071. And so that's going to be 41.3. Now, an important thing to know when you get these answers right here, which are all down below, and it might be to 1 decimal again. When you get these answers down below and you start inputting them, let's go over to the input on it, your numbers should add up to 100% because it's basically considering all the groups. So 43.5 and 41.3. There might be some sort of rounding that brings it over, but if you want to double check, do 15.3, 43.5, and 41.3, and you get the 101, but that's because some numbers rounded up or didn't, just the rounding occurred, but everything looks good. If you carry out to more decimals, you will see it doesn't go over 100%. Yay! Good question. Just, the tricky part right there is how they're grouping stuff, and that's just two conditional distributions. Once again, the learning objective of the previous question was, what are these two conditional distributions? Write the conditional distribution for presidents, which is of only presidents. Write the conditional distribution for U.S. adults, but then they throw in a little trick where they remove the does not know NAs, and then they combine together the good and the excellent. Remember how we drew that out here? It's going to look like the following, where you remove that group, and then this is combined together into 855. So, pretty good question. Like, some of the questions I love, some of the questions I don't, but they're all pretty good. Yes. Here we go. A study, let me take a note on this for those coming back in the future. That's question 2 we just did. 3413, stat 201, chapter 3, homework, question 3. Okay. A study of 299 undergraduate students were asked, do you prefer carnivore, omnivore, or vegetarian, political alignment, liberal, moderate, and conservative? A stacked bar chart, as it says. Of the 285 responses, so you've got some non-response bias right here, people not answering your survey. Describe what this plot shows using the concept of a conditional distribution. Do you think the differences here are real? So when we talk about real differences, you can be in kind of two worlds with mosaic plots. A mosaic plot that doesn't really show real differences is going to look something like this right here, where the bars are kind of close. This is probably due to random chance. Where when you see larger differences, something like this is unlikely due to random chance. Good to see you here, Sydney. Let us know you got questions. So these are large differences that are unlikely due to random chance. When are differences small? Well, that's probably small, and then I'll give you one in the middle that's kind of like, I don't know. We have ways of telling this with p-values. This would be no, probably, yes, probably, and who knows. If we get into the more specifics on this, I would have to get into p-values, which is for later. But for right now, the bigger the differences in the conditional distributions, which is within one of the variables, specifically here, the x variable, is going to tell us maybe there's a stronger or weaker relationship. And so the bigger the gap between these, the stronger the differences, or the more kind of mathematical the differences, because you can see right here, if we call this the no group and we call this the yes group, that there's a lot more no over here for condition A versus condition B. Rather, condition B has more no's. So if someone was in condition B, they'd be more likely to say no, versus if they're in condition A, they'd be less likely to say no. Whereas over here on the first example, the differences are not as pronounced between condition A and condition B, where someone says yes or no. So the differences are stronger. Let's write that here on the bottom. So it's stronger the bigger the gap, or the differences in the conditionals, and weaker over here. Kind of good notes to have. Could we see a horizontal stacked bar chart? It would look the same. Good question. So the bar charts are going to look the same with the same sort of ideas. They just don't show the conditional, hence why I'm not a fan of them. Stacked bar charts don't give you a conditional here. So on the bottom, there is no conditional. No conditional. Or no marginal, excuse me. No marginal. Where the mosaic plot tells you, so we'll compare it right here. The mosaic plot would let you know that a lot less of B was sampled. But the stacked bar chart for the same data might look like this. And you can't really tell between A and B that there's a lot less. Does that make sense over here? Because over here you have the marginal distribution, and you can tell that there's about an 80%, 20, something like that maybe, or maybe 85, 15% split. So you don't get that marginal distribution, which is why I don't like stacked bar charts versus a contingency mosaic plot. And so let's look at the stacked bar charts. Ooh. So what do you see? Vegetarians are more likely to be what? Vegetarians are more likely to be what? But it's a little simpler. So some people like the simple nature of it. Like it doesn't, it's, I think a lot of people would understand this just looking at this. Vegetarians were more likely to be what? Given someone is vegetarian, they are more likely to be what? Liberal, exactly. But here's what's interesting. Given someone's a carnivore, liberal and moderate are the two most likely groups. Conservative is the least likely group out of all of them, it looks like. So, given someone is vegetarian, they're likely to, more likely, we should say more likely, even though the other ones have likelihood for liberal right here. So, very important to note that it's not like if you're vegetarian, you are liberal. Once again, this is a sample, so that I'm sure there's conservative vegetarians who are conservatives, but this is a conditional right here because we're looking within one variable right here. So the marginals would be on the outside, but it does not have the marginal since it's a stacked bar chart. Great job, Andrew, right there. Got 30 some points, and Nick. So vegetarians tend to be more liberal. I think that's it right there. Boop, wait. Boop. There we go. The differences are probably real because, once again, we see larger differences right here. The bigger the gaps, the larger the differences. Diet preferences and political alignment appear to be strongly associated. Independent would mean if we knew one, it would tell us nothing about the other. What would not real look like? So this would be where it is not real, and he'll put those terms below here. So this would be not real. I gotta write a little bit better than that. Let's try. Not real. And this would be independent. And this would be real and associated. Does that make more sense? Let me know. So the more you're going over there towards the bigger the gaps. So the bigger the gaps, the more real and associated it is. So real is when it's like it really wouldn't, or real is when there's a big gap, and not real is when there's a small kind of gap and they look to be independent. Like, let's say this is people who pass the exam A versus B, and you'd be like, well, there's small differences right here. It doesn't look to be associated. So not real. It just doesn't. The terminal, I'm going to go into a small, quick thing right here because there's a lot more to this to where we can't say just based on that gap. Because I'm going to do it over here in code really quickly. So I'm going to do a 2-second code break. Is if I go over here and run some analytics, this is the real deal with it. Like, this is how we can quickly run some stuff. Watch this. Data survey 10. And let's go over here and go to the association between handedness and gender and data survey 10. Okay. So take a look at this right here. These are the left, right, and ambidextrous handedness of males and females. Females are a little more likely to be what? Females are a little more likely to be what? What do you notice females are a little bit more likely to be? Females are a little bit more likely to be what? So look over here on the right. They're a little more likely to be what? Right-handed, exactly. And what does this mark right here mean? In our survey, what? Because that's a margin, right? So what does that mean in the mosaic plot over here? If we look at this spot and trace down right here, what does that mean? So we're talking about this right here. What is that? What information does that give us? What information do we learn from that pretty quickly about what was what? Because that's a margin of the mosaic plot. What information does that give us? Well, not the middle ground. So wait, good answer right there. Good answer. So we're talking about gender, right? So what does this mean that this spot right here associated with this, where that would be at about 0.55? What does that mean for the variable gender? What does that mean for the variable gender? That's a marginal distribution of gender. So I bet you, watch this. What does that mean right there? What does that mean? So think about what I put down below, and then think about what the marginal means right there. Like when you're looking at it, you're like, oh, about from our data was this. What would that mean? Because that's just the margin. Like everything above this doesn't matter right there when you're looking at the margin. So that's trying to tell you that about 55% of the people surveyed were male and female. Or female rather. What do you notice we're not talking about when we look at the one marginal distribution? Do you notice how this is just gender down here? And notice how my code down there only refers to gender? We're not talking about handedness because the marginal distribution of handedness is over here on the other side of it. And here's the marginal distribution of handedness because it's in the margin on the other side. And you can tell the vast majority of people were right-handed, and that's all people, maybe about 85%. And I can switch that right here pretty quickly to go to handedness. And it is 88%. And that's the percent right there. Is that making more sense right there, Nick? These are the margins. They just look at one variable. And then this small little thing right here would tell you that we do not think that gender and handedness are associated. It looks like there's just a small, tiny gap right there. But if we were to look at a variable, let me pull up one more right here to show when there's more of an association. So let's think about when do we have a bigger association. Still opening my jump lessons. Okay. We're going to look at one with a bigger association right here. And when we have a bigger association, let's look at analyze fit y by x, gender, breaking a bone. And if you look at this data right here, who is more likely to have broken a bone? So males or females, who's more likely to have broken a bone? We can even do the row percentages down here. So there's the row percentages, which tell us if somebody is female, 40.13% of them have broken a bone. So you can put that right there. There's the 40.13. That's 40.13% of females have broken a bone. We can look down here at the row percentage for males. If someone is male, 55.65% of them have broken a bone. We can see that right here. So who is more likely to have broken a bone? So there's the male percentages right there. And think about this. Here's the males who have not broken a bone, which this 45 and 55 right there would add up to 100. So it should be a little lower than 60 because 60 and 40 add up to 100. And these are the numbers we see right here, which can be obtained by taking the 181 and divided by 451. And that's the 40% because there's 181 females who have, yes, broken a bone. Is this making more sense, Nick, right here to hopefully see how mosaic plots are made, contingency tables, and then you can see there are more females in this survey than males. You can also see that over here with 451 females versus 355 males right there, which is that's why this bar right here goes a little bit further. And then you can look at there are more people who did not break a bone. So this no goes a little bit higher, and that's the distribution right here, which is in the margin down here. Good deal. Let's do the next question. Okay. Is this question 4? Did we just... Oh, God. Question 4. Okay. Question 4, 46, 33, stat 201, chapter 3, homework. Question 4. Here we go. Okay, medical researchers followed 6,272 Swedish men for 30 years to see whether there was an association between the amount of fish in their diet and prostate cancer. A mosaic plot of the results is given. From the mosaic plot, about what percent of all men in this survey were diagnosed with prostate cancer? Are there more men who had cancer and never seldom ate fish, or more men all on the other ones? Let's look. So it wants, from the mosaic plot, about what percent of all men in the survey were diagnosed with prostate cancer? Now, what this is looking at right here is the percent of all men diagnosed with prostate cancer. And this is going to be a little bit interesting right here. So it wants, I wonder the bounds on this one. So it wants to know the percent. It wants the marginal. What percent of men were diagnosed with prostate cancer? That is marginal right there. And so let's take this right here and let's do the following. I think it's about 10%. We're going to have to cheat a little bit to do this. Good news, you get to see the answer. So we are going to take this right here and draw a little bar under it. There we go. Okay. Looks to be about 10% to me. There's one of those units. 2. 10% would probably be about right. Ooh, maybe less. It's the homework, so you get multiple attempts. Maybe like 9%. Yeah, one more unit. That's about right. Okay, so that looks like the right amount. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's 1/14th. There's 14 of those, so that is 14th is half of a seventh. A seventh is 14.28. That would make this about 7% or so. So it's about 7%. 1/14th is about 7%. There it is, 7%. And I wonder if my guess of 10% would have worked. Would 10% would have worked? It would have worked. So that's really, let me see, is it, yeah, probably 7% seems right. Oh, you see, there it is, 7%. So 7% is the right answer, but it's got a really nice boundary on it. I was thinking 10% looked a little high as I started to do it. I wonder if 11% would have worked. Is 11% like its upper bound? Would it not take it? Takes 11%? That's really generous. 12%? Oh my gosh, 12% really? 13, 14. What? No way. What if we do 5%? Okay, I'm just very interested on the right answers this gives. 5%? Yeah, this is the nicest question in the world. What is the boundary on it? 4%? Okay, good. That's it's you can tell it's more than 4%. 15%? Sure. Yeah, and I said 10%, which is right in the middle. Yeah, that's really nice of it. Once again, we found it to be 7%, which is the answer they're showing. I guess 10%. My guess was not as good. I started to lower it as I saw that I was having to do more, but it doesn't require this sort of estimation. But I think you should decently able to tell about what percent that is. If someone's, it looks like the bounds is 5 to 15%, which is a very generous range of just very generous range. So what does this tell you? Well, no, then they're asking, are there more men who had cancer? Okay. So now they're looking at within something. Okay. Of the men who had cancer. So what kind of distribution is this when I say of the men who had cancer? We're looking just in here. Are there more men who, and I hate that they changed colors like that. Of those men, are there more men who had cancer and never ate fish, or more men who did not have cancer and never? Oh, I see what they're asking. Okay. This is okay. This is a very specific question they're asking. Let's show how to do it. Thanks, my love. Love it. Okay. Are there more men who had cancer and never seldom ate fish? I got to see the colors again. Never seldom is that little sliver, the little gray right there. So they're asking about this versus this. What do you think is bigger, A or B? What do you think is bigger? And I'll tell you, B looks to have about twice the height, but A has about 13 times the width of it. So where do you think there's more area on this graphic? But if these were bars of gold, would you take bar of gold A or B? If these were bars of gold, would you take bar of gold A or B? Which of those has more information? Yeah, A is way bigger because you could just like start folding it over on itself to make a way bigger chunk. So A is way bigger. It takes up more area. They could have made it simpler by asking like the upper regions. Then it would be really obvious because the green region here is way bigger than the green region there. But still pretty clear on that one. So it'd be the men who did not have cancer right there. Boop. Okay. Which is higher? Okay, so now I think they're going for within. Okay, so let's look at C right here. Which is higher, the percent of men with cancer who never... Okay, they are. They're asking about this. Which is higher, the percent of men who never... the percent of men with cancer who never seldom ate fish. It's still never seldom, right? Yeah, it's never seldom. Good. The percent of men with prostate cancer or the percent of men without. So which of those has a higher percentage? A or B? Which of those has a higher percentage for that group? Which of those has a higher percentage for that group? The percentage is given a man did not have prostate cancer, he never seldom ate fish. Given a man had prostate cancer, he never seldom ate fish. So which of those has a higher percentage right there? So now we're looking within those groups. This one right here is very clearly conditional. Is A or B higher? A larger percentage. You can see I tried to draw that. Actually should be a little smaller. Is A or B higher? A bigger percentage. Which one of those do you think represents a higher percent within their group? Because it's which is higher, the percent of men with prostate cancer who never seldom ate? It's actually going to be B, because the percentage right here is relative to this over here, like what percent it takes up on this number line. Does that make sense right there? So this is within the group, which of these has a higher percentage? So the percent of men with... Yeah, no worries. That's why the practice. So the percent of men with cancer would be this one right here, who never seldom ate. So that height right there represents it. And the percent of men without cancer who never seldom, it's that right there. So B, yeah, no worries. Good work right there with 3 more 50 points. It's the practice that matters and understanding what they're getting at. So it's the ones with cancer, I believe. Yes, the ones with cancer. There we go. Got it. The Pew Research. We're going to mark the new question. The Pew Research. Then we'll do some Canvas content after this. Or if you have one from the quiz, let me know. And the biggest thing, once again, is knowing the material and how to solve these. It's not about getting the answers right. It's understanding the concepts. The Pew Research Center asked 2,143 U.S. adults and that many college presidents rate the job they were doing, and then they abbreviated the don't know, doesn't apply. Complete these parts. Okay, so now we have a mosaic plot right here. What does this bottom thing represent right here? What does this bottom thing down here represent on the graphic? These are the things we need to know. So what is this? The blank distribution of blank. What is that bottom thing called? You can see the blank distribution of blank. The M distribution of G. What is that? So take a moment and think about, what is that called? The M distribution of G. What am I getting at? It's in the margin. So it's only one variable. That's what marginal distributions are. So what do we call it? It's the marginal distribution of group. Does that make sense? That's only looking at, what does that tell you? That in this sample, there was what? Almost a 2-to-1. Not that there was 2 and 1, but if you look at the numbers from it, you can see from the numbers right up here, almost a 2-to-1 ratio, that there was almost twice as many adults as there were college presidents. Now, what are we looking at right in here versus right in here? What are we looking at with these? What are those called within there? So the things I've highlighted right there are called the what distributions, like given someone is a U.S. adult, given someone is a college president. So what are those called? We'd call those the what distributions. Like that right here, this information in here is given someone is a U.S. adult. So we'd call this a what? Because we're setting a what here. That is a conditional distribution. Conditional. That is a conditional. Yes, great job right there, Nick. That is a conditional. So what do you instantly learn from this right here? Way more whats compared to way less whats. What do you learn about this right here within the conditional distribution? What does that show you pretty quickly right there? What does that show you pretty quickly right there? What do you learn pretty quickly about that? Comparing the two right there. Probably telling you there is an association. So we're basically doing the question right now. We're just understanding what they're showing us, which is what the questions are going to walk us through. This question is trying to tell us how to read a mosaic plot and understand and gain information from it and get knowledge. So what does this communicate to us? That way more what's versus way less what's think college is what? Bigger kind of. So there is a larger percentage of of college presidents who think that college is better quality versus less parents think so. From the Mosaic plot, about what percent of the respondents were college presidents? So from it, we can do 33%. It's gonna good. Yeah, I said 2/3, 1/3. From the Mosaic plot, is it easy to see there are more U.S. adults who said college provides excellent, or more college presidents who said, yeah. So it should be yes, because the proportion of the area of each rectangle to the bar of it is easy to see. Okay, this one. The way it asks it. Okay. So, yes, because the area of the rectangles are easy to compare. Okay, so the areas of the rectangle are how many people are in it. So we want to say, is it easy to understand there are more US adults who said, okay, so the bigger the rectangle itself, the more people there are. And we're asking about the excellent value. I think this one is such a trigger one. All right, so what they're saying with A, the proportion of the rectangle speaks to the following. Let me show you what, and they're asking excellent. Excellent, okay, so they might be going yes or no. When they say the proportion of the rectangle, they're asking this right here, and that would be easy to compare. But when they're asking, and this is like percent right here, that's the percent. There's way more presidents who think that college is an excellent value. That is a conditional. But when they talk about the area is literally how many people there are. And I think they're going to say, no, it's not easy to compare those areas. Because the larger the area, the more people there are in that group. And it's easy to compare these areas down here because you could be like, oh, there's way more adults, not like percentage wise. Because if I'm talking about a higher percentage, I would compare the proportion right here. That would be the percentage right there. But the area highlighted in yellow, it's easy to see that the area, which is how many people there are, is a lot larger for that one. So I think they're going to go with no, it's not easy to compare those areas. So no, because it's not easy to compare the area of the two rectangles because they're kind of off-size rectangles. Yeah, that was tricky. For the mosaic plot, it's easy to see how the percentage, see, that's the key right there, the percentage of college presidents who think it's an excellent value compares. So does that make more sense right here? If we're going to talk about the percentage, we're talking about the conditional. How are you doing on this one, Nick? If we're going to say, is there a higher percent of college presidents, then we're talking about comparing this. And is that easy to compare? Makes sense? So is this easy to compare the percentage, yes or no? Like, is it easy to compare this percent versus this percent and be like, which one has more of a percent that thinks it has an excellent value? Is that easy to compare? But it would, well, so let me ask you, which of these two bars is longer? You ready? Is bar A longer or is bar B longer? So does that make sense? Because this would line up with the percent of presidents who think it's an excellent value is probably around 18%. And the percent of parents who think it's an excellent value is probably about 4%. So now we're looking within just parents, and we're saying within just parents or within just college presidents right there. So we're comparing the length of those bars right there to look at the conditional distribution. Given someone is an adult, given someone is a president, what do they think? So this one is going to be easier to compare. Yes, because the proportions of, yes, because the areas, no. The proportion of the area the rectangle takes up of its bar, yeah, right there. Just the way they phrase it's a little bit weird. They should say, I don't know. It's just very oddly phrased. I do agree on that. For the mosaic plot, do you think there is an association? Yes. Yes, because no, they're different. The more different the responses are, the stronger the association. Good question right there. Maybe I'd change up the wording of it a little bit. Lucas, good to see you here. So let us know if you got questions. That was a tricky one, but pretty good. Pretty good. We like it. We like it. Okay, let's do question number 6. Okay, stat tool 1. Okay, a survey of 299 undergraduate students asked about respondents' diet preferences, carnivore, omnivore, vegetarian, and political alignment, liberal, moderate, conservative. A mosaic plot of the results is given. Complete parts A through D below. Click the graphic. Okay. Yeah, so what we see right here is some sort of association. Male, for whatever respective group they're in, have a little bit higher than female at all times. There's very few female conservatives sampled. Oh, Colin, good to see you here. I'll appear on the screen. My hair's getting crazy long. Pixie Dust from Orlando. Good to see you there, Colin. And yeah, hope to see you around UT here sometime. So yeah, awesome. Good to see you. We'll throw some 100 points for random Colin up here, and we always do that. And people are like, yes, Colin, come to swing back class. So females, males, female males, but it is like female liberals, male liberals, female moderates, female male moderates, conservative female, and male conservatives. So, are there more men or women in the survey? I think at all times I think it's pretty easy to tell. Are there more type M or F? And there's more men, right? Because you can see right here, the male bar is always longer, and they could make it tricky, but it's easier to see. And you're looking at the marginal distribution. I wish they just said LF, LM, MF, MM, and CF, CM. Like it's just they could talk about it more like one variable. So there are more men because the total area of the bars in the male's larger. Yeah, you have to total those bars. And total area, yeah, you'd have to total all the male bars and look at the total width along the bottom that the male's bars take up is more than the total width of the female bars, which is the marginal distribution. Does there appear to be an association between, yes, between politics and gender? Oh, between politics and gender? Oof. Oh my gosh. Okay. So now we need to look within here. This is a very tricky one. It's a new one. Okay. Who was more likely to be conservative? Who was more likely to be conservative, males or females? So look within this, and who was more likely to be conservative, males or females? We had more. Who was more likely to be conservative, males or females? Males. Great job. Who is more likely to be moderate, males or females? Who is more likely to be moderates, males or females? It's a small males again, right? And then on the last one, who is more likely to be liberal, males or females? And it's more males. There is starting to be more of a ratio of females. So if they are going for any association, it would be females. Probably a better way to look at this, since they're not looking at just two variables. It doesn't look to be that strongly associated. There appears to be a weak, I like weak right there. Are they going to try to trick me? There appears to be a weak association between it. The relative proportion of females in each group for the politics tends to be. Now, if it's weak, are they different or similar? If there's a weak association, are they different or similar? If there's a weak association, are they different or similar? If there's a weak, would they be different or similar? And I'll go to the graphic here in a moment. They'd be similar. Exactly. Great job, Nick. Learning this really well today. So we could go back to here and use the same terminology. So no association. If there's exactly no association, then it'd be completely flat. So this would be no. And this would be, it'd be easier to tell, yes, exactly, great job. This is weak, and then this is like a strong association. So we're looking at these differences right here that I'm using the blue pen for, where there's no, or there's a weak, or there's a strong right there where there's a big difference. Does that make sense? Kind of putting the little mark through it. But the stronger it is, the bigger that difference is up there up top between the conditional distributions. And they do this one a bit odd, but they become smaller. Yeah, they do become Let me see right here. The relative proportion of females in each group for the politics. Okay, maybe they're going for something. Okay, so I'm a little worried. I don't think it's strong. Don't go strong. No, no, no. Oh, really? Really? You gotta be kidding me. The subjectivity stuff is the hardest on this. I knew it when I was doing it because they're telling you, and what they're talking about here is what I noticed too, is that there's way less females down here for the last one. It's like a 5-to-1 ratio, where over here it's a, maybe it's moderate. Maybe I should have said, if they had moderate, that would have been even worse. I started to realize that I was like, they are pointing out that there are less females who are conservative, which you see right here, the conservatives. Yeah, so once again, that's why I do these sometimes. The subjective ones are the hardest. If they just ask me to find the p-value, I can find you the p-value for that in seconds. So, but the subjectivity stuff really can be tricky. So, it's moderate. It's moderate. Does there appear to be an association between politics and diet? So if we look here at the politics someone has right here, what do you notice about conservatives? Conservatives are way more likely to be what? So, yeah. Even the females versus, but just looking at, I wish they only looked at one variable at a time. They're giving you a very complex graphic right here. Frankly, I would tell someone who made this graphic, plot each one individually. That'd be my advice if a 320 student turned this in. I would say only display two variables at one time, because a lot of people are going to be confused by multivariate graphics like this. It is kind of still just two variables, though. What do you think? Conservatives are more likely to be what's? Conservatives, which is probably where they're going to go with this. This is a much stronger association, where the liberals are more likely to be what? Not saying they are this, because pretty much everyone is omnivores. Omnivores is the predominant group for everything. But liberals are more likely to be this. But remember, we're talking about diet now. Good answers right there, Nick. So we're talking about diet and ideology. So conservatives are more likely to be this diet. Well, not like they are going to be it, but they have a higher probability of being a certain diet, where liberals have a higher probability of being another diet. And even though everyone is likely to be omnivore, like you meet a random person, they're probably an omnivore. But if they're a liberal, they're more likely on one diet like than other people. If they're conservative, they're more likely another diet, according to this data, than other people. Vegetarian for liberals and carnivore for conservatives, according to this data right here. So does this appear to be association between politics and diet? There appear to be a strong, please tell me strong, because the conditional distribution of diet tends to include more meat as you become more conservative. Yeah, there we go. Does the association between politics and diet differ between males and females? There is something, because the liberal males are more carnivore and the liberal conservatives are more carnivore too. So we're looking within here at just like this, but you'll notice females are more vegetarian. The vegetarians are all primarily female, and then there's this spike in carnivore every time someone's male. So definitely the difference in the proportion of vegetarians between liberals and conservatives. So the vegetarians is larger for women. The difference in proportion of carnivores for liberals and conservatives is larger for men. I think that's, yep. That's such a complex graphic. Oh, that was it. That was the challenge question right there. But they're just wanting you to see that if you go all the way over here, there's more males who are carnivore and the vegetarians. You're welcome, Nick. Yeah, really good question. Let's do Canvas content here. Whee! Okay, time for a little Canvas content. I love some Canvas content. Tell everyone today in class, check out the Canvas content. The first Canvas content, you get 2 attempts. So use those 2 attempts. Okay, Canvas content. Stat 201, Canvas content, number 1. Let's do it. Okay. Time for Canvas content. Okay. So what you want to do right here when we're doing this is take note cards out. Take note cards out. Awesome. Grab something to eat, Nick. I'll see you later. Take your note cards out. Follow along. Take notes. It's very important that you have definitions for a lot of these, like what is a population, what is a statistic, what is a sample, what is a parameter. A population is everything we want to understand. Like, is it the population of UT students? Is it the population of Snickers bars? Is it the population of iPhones we're making at our factory? It's everything we want to understand. A statistic is something we collect from a sample. A statistic estimates the truth for a population. The sample is what we take to estimate the truth. We don't want to understand samples. Hint, hint, hint. Samples are our insight into populations of interest because we're interested in a population. A parameter is what we want to know about the population. So maybe I want to know, hey, Sloan, good to see you here. If you want to work on something, let me know. We're just doing a few reviews of Canvas content here to help people out, and I'll tell people in class day, check out where we did the Canvas content right here. Oh, you said brain. So the parameter would be something like what percent of people vote for a candidate in the election. So you could find out the truth after the election happens, and that would be the parameter. But if you collect data before, you would take a sample, and your statistic of what percent of people said they would vote for the candidate would be from your sample to estimate the truth for when the election happens, and that would be the population of people who vote on election day for the parameter of interest that you want to know. So samples and statistics are numbers. Samples and parameters are numbers. Oh my gosh. Statistics and parameters are numbers. A statistic is the estimate of a parameter. A statistic comes from a sample to estimate the truth for a population, and that truth is the parameter of interest. So try to think of your own examples. Like if you went out and asked students, do you play a video game? Well, the people you talk to would be your sample. Maybe 20% say yes, that they play Valorant or something like that. So you're estimating the truth for all UT students, which is the population you're interested in. And the parameter is what percent of all UT students play Valorant. And your best guess of that is the statistic, which you'd say, it's about 20%. You could do, here's the thing, you could do an interval to estimate the truth really quickly. If you just did prop test and you found out 20 out of 100, and there you go right there. There's your interval, probably about 13 to 29% with 95% confidence. And we could do things like this in Jump. I do like to show the quick way of doing this in Jump too, just a little more typing. Yes, right there. Oh no, we want play game. And then we type in here yes, we type no, and then we get the count of 20, 80. And then we go here to analyze, distribution, play game is the variable of interest with the frequency right there. And then we stack it, and we got our bar chart, and then we go to confidence, 95, and there we go, somewhere between about 13 to 29%. So once again, these are the things we can do with statistics to estimate the truth for a population, to say probably somewhere between 13 to 29% with 95% confidence that the truth is contained in that interval. That's what we do. So a group of people or items we want to understand. Is that A, B, C, or D? The group of things we want to understand, is that A, B, C, or D? The things we want to understand. Not the things we collect on, not what we want to know, not what we collected on from the sample, but the group of things we want to understand. It's called the what. The group of things we want to understand is called the what. Sometimes we call it the this of interest, the population of interest. What type of variable best describes player ID? Now, player ID is going to be something that will not repeat because it's going to identify the player. It's definitely not no answer text provided. So a freebie wrong answer right there. Identifiers are going to be unique for everything. So if you see something repeat, or it could repeat, like somebody's weight could repeat, someone's height could repeat right there. It's going to be weight and something kind of reversed right there, right? Weight could repeat, height could repeat. They're also quantitative. Club could repeat, so it's categorical. Position could repeat, team could repeat. Player ID is an identifier to identify the player. A researcher wants to examine plain M&Ms. They select bags. Now, this is where we get into some interesting ideas right here, and I'm going to talk about them at the start of the lecture. And this idea right here is the idea of cluster sampling. Now, cluster sampling is used when you take a large group at once and sample everything within it. So cluster sampling. 1, randomly select things that have been put into groups. Do a census on the group, i.e. collect info on each thing. Good to see you here, Kaven, in the group. So this is Canvas content. We could do number 2 after this if you want. This is number 1. We'll do number 2 after if you like, Sloan. So a cluster sample, which we'll talk about in class today, just to make sure everyone knows it, is when you randomly select things that have been put into groups, and you're going to randomly select those groups, randomly select groups of things. Randomly select, yeah, I like things that have been put into groups. You're selecting a bag of M&Ms. You are selecting a bag of M&Ms. So think about this. A 6-pack of Coca-Cola would be a cluster of Coca-Cola. A 12 dozen, yeah, definitely, Sloan. A 12 dozen, or dozen, not a gross, that's what dozen. A dozen donuts would be a cluster of donuts. So you can select clusters right here, and that makes it easier to sample. So that's a cluster sample. The median is highly influenced by outliers. False. The median is not influenced by outliers. Try it right here. Say the numbers, 3 numbers like 1, 2, 10. Median's 2, middle number. 1, 2, a million. It sounds like I'm saying 2. So 1, 3, a million. Like 1, 3, 1 million. Well, 3 is still the median. 1, 3, a Googleplex. Well, 3 is still the median. The mean is highly influenced by outliers. So this is false. The median is not. A Pareto chart is a special case bar chart, and that's seen right here with the Pareto chart right there. It's a bar chart that's been put in order. Once again, if you don't have this graphic, take a picture of it, screenshot right here. Really good to know this graphic and know what you have. Histograms are quantitative. Mosaic plots are bivariate categorical. Bar charts and pie charts are things you can interchange. And a bar chart is a special case, or Pareto is a special case bar chart. 10 out of 10. We'll do one more version right here. We'll see what we get. The type of data that puts people into groups, categories, not quantitative for real numbers. Blank is collected to make inferences about a population. So once again, a variable is a kind of question we ask. We do collect variables, but what we collect to make an inference about a population, we call it inferential statistics. So inferential statistics come from samples. So a statistic is a number collected from a sample. So we collect samples to understand a population of interest, and populations have parameters. Check out the first question of the first version where I did more. We got the cluster sample M&Ms again. The mean is highly influenced by outliers, true, and a Pareto is a bar chart. What kind of shape of distribution will require you to use the median or mean? So Kevin, good question right there. When do we know to use mean or median? So median is used when data is what or what? Median should be used when data is what or what? When do we use the median? When do we use the median? Skewed or outliers. So if it has skew/outliers, that's going to be the median. And normal/symmetric, that is going to be the mean. So if you were to see data, like let's just take some random data here. You ready? Good question. Let's go to analyze distribution. And let me take something like how much people sleep at night. Do you think we should use, what do you think we should use right here? So look what the data's got, and then explain to me if you use mean or median. Would you use mean or median with this, and why? So justify your choice on mean or median. Mean or median, and justify the choice. Really good questions. Great job, Kevin, right there. So median, and then what should you use for spread? Median for center, and what should you use for spread? Good answers. What should you use for spread? IQR. And so what is the IQR? Great answers. We got to throw you some points, 100 points. We're throwing more points out there. So what is the IQR for this data? Median because of outliers. So we selected the median right here. And so what is the IQR? It'd be 1. Great job. Yep. Because that's 7 minus 6. 1. The spread of the middle 50% is 1. That is a spread of middle 50% of 1 for hours slept at night. Great job right there. Excellent work. Good practice. And then we'll do some Canvas content number 2 coming up here in a second. An identifier is a special case categorical variable. Quantitative variables must be numeric. Mosaic cannot decide. Massey. She uses random.org, generate a random number. This is a simple random sample. Simple random sample is when everything in the population is given a number, and then we randomly select those numbers. So simple random sample. Simple random sample. Everything is given a number. Randomly select numbers. That is a simple random sample. So she is simple random sampling from it. The median is highly influenced by outliers. That is false. Median is not. So if there's a small amount, just depends on how big amount the outlier is. Like if there's just like one small one, maybe not, because everything is kind of maybe in statistics. So it just depends on, make sure if you're having to write something, justify your choice to be like, there's maybe even mention the outliers. So justify your choice with how you talk about it. If there's large skew, large outliers, median. If there's very little skew, very little outliers, mean. So try to justify your choice right here. This is, and good questions, Kevin, right there. This is a bar chart that's been put in order. So what is this called? This is a bar chart that's been put in order. So it goes from the most common group to the second. What's it called? A mosaic plot is a bivariate categorical. Mosaic plots, we had some up. That's a mosaic plot. It's Pareto. Great job. That's a mosaic. Histograms are quantitative. Pie chart, it's not. So it's definitely a Pareto right there. Pareto is a bar chart that's been put in order. I think we've done, we're going to do one more version, then we're going to do Sloan's question about canvas count number 2, just see if we see anything new right here. The type of data that's actual real numbers, quantitative, the type of data that puts people into groups, categories. Oh, new one right here. So during the first period, he decides to randomly visit 12 classrooms. Okay. He surveys all people in the classroom. So this is a good review question. He's going to survey everybody in the classroom. So each classroom is a cluster of students. And did you notice here he's doing a census on the classroom? So things have been put into groups, and then you randomly take those groups, and you do kind of use simple random sample to randomly select the groups. You're going to be like, let me just take a few random classrooms right here, and then let me talk to everyone in that classroom. This is definitely a cluster sample right here as far as I can tell. I'm seeing if I missed anything in it. Match, this is a really great one. Bars and pies go together, and you can make a bar chart of your favorite pie and a pie chart of your favorite bar. So if you ask someone what's your favorite pie, you're asking a categorical question. Pareto is a bar chart that's been put in order. If you ask someone what's your favorite bar, you're asking another categorical question. Histograms and stem and leaves are both quantitative displays of data. And we can confirm this if we do a little data analytics and jump over here by going to analyze distribution and putting down something like age, and then we can also make a stem and leaf of it. And the stem and leaf just shows you the numbers, but it's ridiculous for larger data. You don't use really stem and leaves for larger data. That's 20.0, which are all the 20-year-olds, or there's the 19, there's the 20-year-olds. So stem and leaves are much better for smaller data, and what you're meant to learn from this are the ways data is displayed. And here are the answers, pretty much anything we could ever ask you in this class on how to properly display data. And the reason we're up here right now is because this is univariate quantitative. So histograms, box plots, stem and leaves, and dot plots are all univariate quantitative, where bar charts, pie charts, Pareto, frequency tables, and ring charts, don't love ring charts, are univariate categorical. So take a picture of the graphic and also know it and practice it to understand the types of graphics we're dealing with. Compute the mean. The mean is the average of the values, but this is a symmetric distribution right here. Once again, why I love using programs like R. If we just store data right, oh, what did I do? I just like reset my Stream Deck. So hopefully I didn't break something. If we go data and go to mean of the data, there's the mean. Once again, you would need to find the sum of these. I'm noticing the symmetry of it here, that's 5 below, that's 5 above, that's 7 below, that's 7 above. So everything's going to average out. If on the test you didn't get numbers like that, you would have to add up the numbers and divide, and you get 25. But I love software for these things because it makes life really easy. Okay, Sloan, it is time for some the second Canvas content. So let's head back to Canvas content number 2. Here we go. Sloan, are you ready for Canvas content number 2? I like doing them until I run out of new questions. That way I'm like, okay, we did everything. And once again, write down the questions to practice. So if you just appeared on this video right now and you went to this timestamp, my biggest suggestion to you is write down the questions. That way you can practice them, you can know them, and understand. Great job, Sloan. Good to see you here still. Let's do some chapter 3 and chapter 4. Now, the first one right here is a chapter 4 question. Outliers of a box plot are blank IQRs above and below the edges of the box. So we haven't done this one yet. We'll be doing it pretty soon, but here's how we can think about it. Let's go look at this box plot right here. Now, what you get with a box plot, and actually it's showing us hints on this. look at where that edge of the box is. If you trace down, where is that edge of the box, Sloan? Can you see it? Yes, you can. Where's the edge of that box? Where's the edge of that box? I might make our own. The edge of that box is at the 75th percentile. And what I'm actually going to do right here, let me do this. I'm going to show you something really cool. Q3, oh, great job, Sloan. Have you done this before, Sloan? Watch this. I'm going to make something really cool right here. So let me see if I can make this pretty easy. Let me go to library, ggpub_r, and ggboxplot. Let me go to survey 10, and let me do handedness. Can we just do y equals handedness? And I think we should be able to. Is it going to do it? Ooh, that's not what we want. X, let's do x equals handedness. Y is missing. Y equals, we need a quantitative metric. Dun, dun, dun. Want to do a count of it. Because what am I doing? Want to do a quantitative variable. My brain just not on today. GPA, rather gender and GPA. There we go. Okay, cool. And what have I done? I didn't put a comma. Okay, now we got it. Okay, and then let's do color. Color equals gender. And I'll show you why I'm doing this in 1 second. There we go. And legend equals right. No, is it not legend equals right? No, sure. Well, that'll be fine. Okay, then let's store this into object P. And then let's go library plotly. And let's go ggplotly. Here we go, Sloan. This is why I did this. Because now I have an interactive graphic. And now you can see that right here, we have the Q3, the max, the Q1, the median is the line, and the min is down here. And it's saying that's where the lower fence is at, but I'm going to check its mathematics. Is that really the lower fence? It might be. Or is that showing the end of the whisker? To check where the lower fence is at, the lower fence, the answer is 1.5 IQRs above Q3, 1.5 IQRs below Q1. And visually speaking, I'm going to do a drawing right here. Bring up the chapter 4 notes for this because really, what? This action cannot be performed. Chapter 4 notes. Did I delete them or something? Well, we'll worry about that later then. So with this right here, we are looking at where Q1 is at, which is 2.99. And we need to find the what right now, Sloan. If we're going to do 1.5 IQRs below Q1, how do we find the IQR? What is the IQR of this box plot currently? And it's pretty easy to calculate. What is the IQR of this box plot, Sloan? So what is the IQR of that box plot? So if we go, this is what I love about this. What is the IQR of this box plot? The IQR is the box of the box plot, Q3 to Q1. So what is the IQR of that box plot? 0.6 what? So we're looking at Q3 to Q1, and that's the length of the box. So what is the IQR? Great job, Kevin, right there, 50 points. Does that make sense? So now we need to go 1.5 IQRs. So let's go 1.5 times 0.64, and that's 0.96. And then let's subtract this 2.99 minus. And you know what? Oh, I see it's doing it a little bit different. I don't love it. That's what I'm mad about. The fence is actually somewhere in here. It's not truly telling us where the fence is at, so I'm a little bit mad. The fence is at 2.03. This is the bottom of the whisker. It should say lower fence between here, between that and that point. So the lower fence is technically right in here somewhere between, it's right in this not that region. It has to be between the lower whisker. It could be on the lower whisker, but it's not exactly calculating. I wish it had. I was so excited there for a moment. I thought we showed exactly where the lower fence is. So the fence is where outliers begin. And I'll show this once again. I want to make this very clear. What is a fence? A fence is where outliers begin. So watch this. If we type in data right here, where would the fence be with this data? There are test questions sometimes that ask something like this. So where would the fence be with this data? We'd need to look at the following. And here we go. Where would the upper fence be with this data? So where is the upper fence? And let's add in the 5-number summary. Where is the upper fence for this data? I'm not going to hit done yet because I'm not done. Really good question. Where is the upper fence? So it's going to be 1.5 IQRs above Q3. But that's not the numeric answer. So let's take the picture of the graphic. So there it is. And we need to go right here to Q3. And we need to go up 1.5 IQRs. We need to find what an IQR is. So what is an IQR on this? What is an IQR? How much is the IQR right here? Q3 is 12. So it's Q3 plus 1.5 IQRs. And the upper fence is where outliers begin. So how much is an IQR right here? So we're trying to calculate right now, what is the IQR? What is the IQR on that? How far are those numbers apart? Q1 to Q3 is how many units of distance, which is the length of this right here. So that's how long right there. So Q3 minus Q1 is equal to 12 minus 3 is equal to 9. So 1.5 IQRs is 1.5 times 9. And that is equal to 13.5. So 12 plus 13.5 is where the upper fence is at. And the upper fence is somewhere around 25.5. Now, the upper fence we don't see. It's kind of something that's there that is telling us where outliers are, but is not graphed in the plot. But take a look. If we go back to our data, we put it over here on the side of the screen, and we start playing around with the data a little bit. There's the graph of our data. And if we go here to 25, you'll notice that that is not an outlier. Even 25.5 is not an outlier because it's right on the upper fence. But 25. Oh, we don't want to add a number because I'll change how many data points we have. 25.6 is an outlier. So right when we get to 25.6, that does become an outlier versus 25.5 is not an outlier because 25.5 is right on the upper fence, which is not an outlier. 25.50001 is an outlier because it's just barely over the fence. You don't see the fence. It's a graphical tool to tell you where outliers begin and end. And there's a large gap in the data right here between 15 to 25.5 because you'll notice there's nothing here. The whisker only goes to the last point in the data. As it says, maximum excluding outliers, which is what R should also say for that, or the minimum excluding outliers. So that is not the maximum. That is the maximum. And the maximum is an outlier, and it's right beyond the upper fence. But if it was 25 on the dot, it would be on the upper fence. Now, the lower fence is going to be here at 13.3. And we figured out that 13.5 is 1.5 IQRs. So all we need to do now is go to Q1. Q1 is down there on the bottom. This is where Q1 is at. And we need to subtract. So Q1 minus 13.5. Well, Q1 is equal to 3. And that's going to be equal to negative 10.5 when we solve it right there. So if we were to put in fun numbers right here and try something like negative 10, you'll notice it extends down. Negative 10.5 is the last number it includes till we get to negative 10.6, and it's now an outlier. So what do these values tell you? They just tell you where outliers begin and end. So it's 1.5 IQRs above Q3, 1.5 IQRs below Q1, which are the edges of the box. Box plots are not ideal for comparing multiple groups, and this is box plots plural. What do you think? Can box plots be used to compare multiple groups right here? Do you think we can use box plots to compare multiple groups? Yes or no in the chat. It says box plots plural, not a box plot, but box plots, like side-by-side box plots. It says they're not ideal. Is this a good way to compare the GPAs of the median for females versus median for males? So is this a good way to compare them right here? These are called side-by-side box plots you're seeing on the screen right here. So side-by-side box plots have a categorical X. Actually, my original question was would there be a case where you would measure both? You can always measure both, but one is going to be an appropriate measure. There are some where they're not going to differ much when they're really symmetric. There's a question on Pearson that says, like, do the symmetry of the distribution, the mean and median won't be that much difference, so someone could pick between the two. But when we usually have a symmetric distribution, we would say the appropriate measure would be the mean. So it's not, in that instance, it's not bad to use either. It's not like you can't report the median. So it might be better to say when we have skew and outliers, the mean should not be used. But we prefer to use the mean. It's just a lot, like the average this. If people say, well, this is the average right here. Like if I go into the class and I report the average, everyone knows what I'm talking about. Usually that's when you just average up the numbers. If I say the median, most people know median, but that's the 50th percentile. To what degree do people understand that 50% of the class scored at or above this, 50% of the class scored at or below this? They might think I'm indicating some sort of skew or removing outliers. Some people use median all the time just to be safe, so there's no skew or outlier influence. But we like to use the mean for symmetric data. But there is a question that says something like, which would be the appropriate, or which one should we use? And it says something like the mean and median could both be used. You might be doing that one right there that says that. That's like, well, you could use either. Box plots are not ideal. That is false. They are ideal for comparing multiple groups. Right here, we have a contingency table, and this one is going to ask us, what is the probability of a student born in Tennessee being an honor student? Very important. We break down the question part by part right here. What is the probability of a student who is born in Tennessee? Now, born in Tennessee is one of the variables here. So that's like your X variable right here, being an honor student, which is the Y variable. This means it's conditional. Given a student is born in Tennessee, what's the probability of them being an honor student? So what would the math be? I'm going to pause here on the screen. So now we're showing it. We're showing given a student is born in Tennessee, what is the probability they are an honor student? So that's the X variable right there, and then the Y variable. So what would it be? What would be the math for given the probability of a student born in Tennessee being an honor student? How would we mathematically find that? What is the probability of a student born in Tennessee? So these are only the students born in Tennessee being an honor student. How would we mathematically solve this? What would the math be? And this is a conditional distribution. Conditional distribution. And so the mathematics is going to be 50 divided by 574, because that's of the 574, the students born to. Yeah, Sloan, great job right there. Yep. There it is. What's it want as a decimal? So just do it as a decimal. Be very careful on the formatting. If you think the formatting was mean to you, just let me know. Jesse, good to see you here. Lucas, good to see you here. So now we have what percent of Marvel superheroes. So does this sound conditional or does it sound marginal? What percent of the Marvel superheroes? What percent of the Marvel superheroes? Does that sound conditional or marginal? So marginal distribution is the distribution in the margins. It only focuses in on one variable at a time. So when you hear a marginal distribution, we're going to bring it over here to our super notes. Always take notes. Know what you're. I should just erase stuff. Let me do that. There we go. Much faster. Okay. So it says what percent of Marvel superheroes. So we're looking at the idea of a conditional distribution right here because it's what percent of Marvel superheroes. Let's go grab that question too. Wrong one. Yes, continue. No, I don't want to continue. And so what percent of the Marvel superheroes? If you have questions, let us know. We got a little more time after this. 2 decimals and report as percentage. Okay. So what percent of the Marvel superheroes? So when we talk about setting one variable right here, we're saying for the publisher Marvel, notice how I'm highlighting the variable, setting a level Marvel. So what percent of the publisher Marvel have the ability to fly? So then we're looking at the distribution of another variable right here, which is going to be have the ability to fly. And that is going to be right here. I'm going to do, let me do this. There we go. But, oh, so I should do this. There we go. That's going to look really good. There we go. Look at that. That's how we should show it visually. Okay. So what percent of Marvel superheroes have the ability to fly? Once again, a conditional distribution is when we look at one variable being publisher, and then we look at, we set a level on it. So the setting of the level should be, and look at the setting a level, correct. We're setting the level Marvel, and then looking at the distribution, which we're very interested in, have the ability to fly. You could look at all of them, but this is our marginal distribution. Yeah, so marginal distributions, marginal display is the same thing. Exactly. So the marginal is actually showing on here. If you'll notice, we have the marginal distribution of superhero. So how many margins are there on this contingency table? How many margins are there on the contingency table? A contingency table has how many margins to it? If you're like, oh, look in the margins, there's kind of how many sets of margins? How many margins are there on a contingency table? There's 2, right? So we've got the marginal distribution of ability, and we have the marginal distribution of publisher. So you could just look at that. And frankly, someone could turn this into, here we'll go here, insert, watch this. If I were to take away all the information in the middle, what have I basically made now? Marginal distributions are a lot like a what? I'm going to go here to insert, and a marginal distribution is a lot like a what? So if you look at the margin right there, you're really just looking at a what. And so look up here, because if it's just one variable, it's kind of like a what right there. Do you see it? The marginal distribution is basically not a contingency table anymore. I mean, it's part of the contingency table, but it's more like a what now if we only put like a frequency. Great job. Because it's just one variable. So the margin just displays for you, like, do you know anything right now about abilities? You know nothing about abilities by looking at the margins. You're just saying like, oh, they a lot more Marvel superheroes. And now if you look at the margin down here, which we got to do a little more fun for this one. If you look at the margin down here, you know nothing about publisher. You would only know about abilities. So the margins only display for you one variable. So a marginal display is just the distribution in the margins and only considers one variable down here definition-wise. So very important to know that, and these questions really get at, can you understand the differences right here? So what percent of Marvel superheroes have the ability to fly? Well, we drew it out, so let's go back and look at that real quick again. There we go. So here's the drawing for it, and we need to go right here and put that right here. And so with this, we're going to say 115, which is the ones that have the ability to fly, out of 794. So that's of the Marvel superheroes, what percent have the ability to fly? We're going to times by 100, and it's 15.5. It looks like if it wants one decimal. 2 decimals, 14.48. That's right. There we go. What is the probability of a student being born in Tennessee? I'm going to pause right here. I do want someone to solve this. These are the questions that I want to make sure you do properly. Does this sound conditional or marginal? And then what's the answer? C or M in the chat. It says, what is the probability of a student being born in Tennessee? So you can write C or M for practice, and then you can also find the answer to practice. So it says, what is the probability of a student being born in Tennessee? Is that conditional or marginal? So conditional means we set a level for one of the variables and look at the levels of the other variable. Marginal means it's just in the margins, like we're just considering one variable. So what would the answer to this be? And is this conditional? Is this marginal? It is marginal. Great job, Kevin, right there. It's marginal, right? So what's the answer? And these are ones you want to be able to do pretty quickly. Like if you know how to do these, you're just like, oh, what's the probability of a student being born in Tennessee? Well, I'm only going to consider one variable. I'm just going to what? What would the answer be? What is the probability of a student being born in Tennessee? How would we do that? What is the probability of a student being born in Tennessee? Yep, that's it. There you go. Great job, Kevin, right there. You're doing it. And then just make sure to round properly. Let me know if you have issues rounding or anything. It says to 3 decimals and it wants decimal format. I think I've changed a lot of them to allow for slight differences, but let me know if you think the question wasn't fair. There we go. Take, drop, good, submit. And we did it. Got that 10 out of 10. Hey, Roshni, good to see you here. How you doing? Great job, Jesse, right there. Excellent work on practicing. Which of the following is a bivariate display of categorical? What do we not see on here? I see a right answer. Stem and leaves are quantitative. Histograms are quantitative. Bar charts are categorical. So I don't see contingency. I don't see stacked bar charts. I don't see side-by-side pie charts. But contingency and mosaic plots are going to be your two best displays. And we do see that over here in the jump output with a mosaic plot and contingency table. So knowing kind of what displays you should have, and I can't state it enough, take a picture of this right here and understand it and know it and know how it works to know right there. I'm good working on discussing posts for classes. And oh, that's awesome. Let me throw you 100 points. We love it when all of our fan favorites come by from previous years. So good to see you, Roshni, right there. Good old Canvas content. Roshni knows all about the Canvas content. I've worked these so many times. When we compare histograms, they should have the same horizontal axis. Well, let me show you this right here. Let's compare the GPAs of males and females right here. So we're going to go here to gender and do the by column and go here high school GPA. And let's go here to stack. And would you look at this? Whose GPAs are higher or lower, males or females? Who had the higher GPA, males or females? Who had the higher GPA on average? Or median, you can do either one. Who had the higher GPA on average, males or females? What do you think? So the male distribution's down here, and the female distribution's up here. Who had the higher GPA, males down here or females? I let you purposely see me mess around with this. Who had the higher GPA, males or females? So whose GPA was higher, males or females? Now, what you want to do at this point, because someone made a really bad graphic for you, what you want to do is you want to look over here at the summary statistics and see the mean for females is 3.87 and the mean for males is 3.72. The median for males is 3.8. The median for females is 3.9. What we can do right now is go right here and go to uniform scaling, and there you go. They're kind of close-ish, but you can see the median right there is lower for males. That's the middle of the box plot, and the mean is the center of the diamond. Jump actually gives you that. And you can see that the females have a higher mean and higher median respective to their male counterparts. Might be better even to just do graph builder and to make side-by-side box plots right here to compare a measure of center. By going right here, we could drop this in, and that's stacked. Yeah, sure, we'll do stacked box plots. There we go. So there we go. Hit done, and there we go. I can put some 5-number summary on this. So if you are making something like this, I would suggest 5-number summary. But we can see here the female group has a higher than male median. So the answer is going to be definitely, we always use uniform scaling, the same axis to compare things. Very true. I think we did things like this. Was the probability of a student born in Tennessee being an honors student? So check out the earlier examples. Born in TN, yes. Honors student, yes. 50 divided by 574. It wants it to 3 decimals in decimal format. So we go right here and we do the following. Good one right here. What % were neutral about the chocolate they tasted? Well, does this sound conditional or marginal? We might end with this question. We'll see if other people have more questions right here. But what % were neutral? So is that conditional or marginal? What % of people were neutral about the chocolate they tasted? So what % of people were neutral about the chocolate they tasted? So what % were neutral? Oh my gosh. What % were neutral about the chocolate they tasted? Does that sound conditional or marginal? What % were neutral? Does that sound conditional or marginal? We need the following. What % were neutral? Conditional or marginal right there. We've got our definitions down below. So what % were neutral? It's marginal. Jesse, great job right there. So asking what % are neutral is just asking for this down here on the bottom. And We're just asking what percent are neutral, and that's only asking about the rating. So you're only asking about a rating, and you're just asking, what percent were neutral? So Jesse, do you have the mathematics for this? What percent were neutral about the chocolate they tasted? Really good practice right there. It might be that. Sounds like a great answer. So the answer is going to be out of the total, which is that. We can go 229 divided by 992, and there it is right there. Great job. And Sloan doing it too right there. So we could ask, like, of the neutral people, what percent tried white chocolate? How could you solve that? So that's the answer to the question. But of the neutral people, we could say, of the neutral, what percent tried white chocolate, which is just fat apparently. Of the neutral, what percent tried white chocolate? Of the neutral, what percent tried white chocolate? Of the neutral. So now we got a different question. Might be right. Let's find out. Yeah, that looks about right. Is it? Looks close. Let's check our math. That looks, yeah, actually, I'm 99% certain. Great job, Jesse. So that means we are going to choose a variable like rating, and then we're going to set a level. And then we are going to look at the distribution of it. More specifically, we're going to care about maybe just this one right here. So we're going to look at white chocolate right there. There you go. Is that making sense? I think. And great job. Oh, the 40. Oh, the Odice. Oh, that's milk right there. So yeah, that would be milk right there, Sloan, or white. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, but you did it right. You're just looking at what percent tried milk chocolate. So as long as you know what you're doing and understand the concepts, I'll make mistakes here every once in a while, but understanding how it works, and so hopefully the color coding helps. Sloan, did you have any ones that you didn't see yet? Wait, that's the one we did, right? That's the neutral. Yep. And then it wants a decimal. Be careful. So it says to 2 decimals. So I think this is right here, right? Or it's going to round to that. So be careful. There it is right there. Marvel Heroes with the ability to fly. So flight is 86 divided by the 531. That's DC. That's DC that can fly. So that's 115 divided by 794. And there it is right there. And then we change to decimal. Be very careful. Really? I'm going to make an error. I should do it. How are we doing on any last questions? That should be right. Yeah, you're welcome. Just to practice on conditional, marginal types of graphics. There was stuff on box plots from chapter 4. That's the main component of chapter 4, which we'll do today. We're going to do a little cleanup on chapter 1, 3, and 4. So start off today with a little bit of review. I'm going to grab a little bit of lunch. Let me send out the announcement. Until then, bye for now, everyone. Bye!